Today we're going to be talking about 3 key things that need to happen in your takeaway. Today we're going to be looking at number 1, width, number 2, rotation, and finally, of course, hinge. Now we've got to get all these 3 movements into our takeaway so that when we come back into the golf ball, we're going to strike the ball the best we possibly can. Now, like I said, we're going to be concentrating on 3 things in our takeaway: hinge, width, and rotation. So let's talk about width first, because that's going to bridge into rotation as well as hinge. Now, why is width really important? Because width is what's going to allow us to produce more club head speed, which means more distance with our shots. Now, one of the most common mistakes that we actually see from a lot of people in the early parts of their takeaway is they get a little bit too much of right arm bend. Now, when you actually do this right arm bend, you'll see at the early stages that you still do maintain a left arm length. But the problem is as you start to go further and further up into the top of your backswing, the left arm starts to buckle, and now all of a sudden we've lost all that width. And if we've lost all that width at the top of our backswing, 2 things is going to happen. Either we're going to cast it to try and produce some width, or we're going to get it even narrower, even more, and then we're going to come down steep onto the golf ball. So width is extremely important, but rotation is what allows us to produce that width. Now, before I actually go further into rotation, what I want you to do is first understand that when we get our club to what I would call shaft parallel in our takeaway, we want to try and maintain our left arm length as much, I should say our right arm length, as much as we possibly can. Now, for us to be able to do that and to bring our left shoulder or bring our left hand to the golf club, we have to what we would do call rotate. Now, for us to rotate, a few things need to happen. Number 1, the right shoulder needs to go back as well as the right hip. So in a rotational movement, so if we look at it from the down the line point of view, we've extended our right arm behind us. Now from here, for me to bring my left arm to that golf club, I'm going to have to rotate my right hip back and rotate my right shoulder back. That allows me to get my left arm to the golf club. So then when we look at it from a face-on point of view, you can actually see there that I've maintained length through my right arm by allowing my right hip to go back and my right shoulder to go back, so that we can maintain width and rotation. So there you can see straight away there's 2 important facets to that takeaway. Width only happens if we rotate. So just make sure that you work on those 2 moves. Now, we need to then start to work the swing up towards the top. And when we're working our swing up to the top, we need to introduce hinge. Now, hinge is really, really important in the sense where we use hinge to release the club head back to the golf ball, which then also produces more speed and more power. Now, hinge happens in 2 ways. Number 1, you can see here, if I was to pick the club up directly in front of me, we get what we would consider a hinge action. A lot of people mistake hinge for rotation of the hands. So what I want you to do is set the club up in front of you and hinge that club up, or so you're picking that golf club up off the ground. Now, one other thing needs to happen with hinge for you to get into a correct position at the top of your backswing, and that is what we would call forearm rotation. Now, when you're looking at it from the down the line point of view, if I get myself into a hinge position here, I need to rotate this forearm backwards or round so that the club gets on a good swing plane angle. So there's a lot of movements that are happening in the early part of the golf swing. So just remember, we want to keep width by adding rotation so that when we get to shaft parallel, our club's in a good position. But then from there, we introduce hinge and a little bit of forearm rotation, which then also flattens the lead wrist and gets us into a really, really good swing plane at the top of our backswing. So there's 3 concepts, 3 ideas with regards to the takeaway. Go and work on those 3 concepts, and I'm sure you'll start to find that you will hit the golf ball a lot better.